Welcome to the Charity Connector. Hosted by Dominic Fenton and produced by Grow Radio, we give you an insight into the hearts of charities making waves in our world.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Charity Connector. I'm your host, Dom Fenton, and we are joined by another guest. Hi Steve, how are you?
Hi Dom, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. Great to have you with us. We've had a bit of a chat off air, but for those that don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself and the organisation that you work with?
Yeah, so I'm Steve McManus, and I'm the head of fundraising for the Hunger Project here in the UK. The Hunger Project, we're an international development organisation. We work in 25 countries across the world. We were founded in 1977, and since then we've worked on what some people may think is a really ambitious goal of the eradication of chronic hunger and poverty across the world. We work with 12 million people a year across all of our countries, which is a tremendous amount, but unfortunately just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the need. The Hunger Project's somewhat unique model is that we target those in most needing communities, and that too often is women and girls. We currently have over 1 billion women and girls globally who are suffering from malnutrition and chronic hunger, and that's not just a lack of food, that's a lack of a balanced, nutritious food, so therefore that leads to malnutrition. A full stomach does not mean a full diet, it still means illness, it still means problems, and it's women and girls who are massively affected by that. It's them who eat last, it's them who eat least, it's the girls who drop out of school. And how we work is from a ground up approach. We don't wander into people's countries and try and tell them how to solve their problems. They know how to solve their problems. They are intelligent people who know what the problems are. They just need a little bit of help fixing the problems. And we provide that in countries like the UK and the States by we advocate on their behalf. So we talk to people like yourself, Dom, we tell their stories, we communicate what they need, what they're going through. We communicate their successes and the way that they are transforming their communities. And we raise money for it. So we support them by helping to fund some of these projects. We also don't really have set times for our projects. So we will work with communities 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years until they are completely self-sustaining in whatever project they are doing. And then we'll walk away and we'll move on to help someone else. So it's not a long reliance on us. It is working with communities who many organizations will say, oh, we empower people. We don't empower people. We work with people who are already empowered. We work with those voices who want to make a change, who want to build up their community, who want to be heard. And we just give them the tools that they tell us they need. It's not even exactly, oh, you'll need to do this, you'll need to do that. It's I want to do this, and in order to do this, I need this and this. And that's where we come in to be able to provide them with some financial support and some knowledge sharing amongst our teams, which is something really important to us. We do take models that have worked in other places that have been devised, and we implement them there. But then we also take things in new projects and we implement them into existing projects. So all of our work is really just about people helping people. It's about humanity. It's about equality. That's what the Hunger Project does. So although I'm in charge of fundraising for the Hunger Project in the UK, I also work across with our great colleagues in the comms teams and just trying to get that knowledge out there. Part of the role, particularly in international development, which is different to some charities, is there's a heavy education element in there. There's a lot of stigma and barriers that have been put up over the years from the way that international development used to be done, the sort of the handouts and the white saviour and the wandering into countries. There is repair to be done of that. The majority of the best organisations on earth at doing this are all moving towards that space of how do we support people in a way that is best for them, not the way that we think, which is right now, particularly in the research and development sector, it's a really refreshing place to be because there's a lot of really passionate people working across so many charities and so many organisations and governmental agencies to try and answer the difficult questions. How do we help people? It's a bit sort of like medicine. How do you help people when do no harm? And that is something that is really prevalent within the international development sector right now. And is really difficult in a fundraising sector because we have a real focus on ethical communications and ethical fundraising. How do we tell people's stories and can keep their agency, keep their humanity? How do we move ourselves so far away from those sort of 80s pictures of starving children with flies on their face to a position where the way that we work and the way that we communicate and the way that we talk about the people that we work with is totally unrecognizable to that? We're not preying on people's most vulnerable situations. You can imagine yourself if you are in the most difficult position you've ever been in your life, you are at your worst. And this goes from, although we work in the sort of long-term sustainable programs, so we're there for a longer term, we don't do the emergency aid. I have worked in fundraising and emergency aid before, but we don't swoop in and take a picture of someone and go, look how sad this person is, give them money. That doesn't help people. That builds up stigma, it builds up barriers. It never shows improvement. And it also dehumanizes people. It makes them a crying child on the news. It doesn't tell you who they are. It doesn't talk about them as people. It doesn't allow you to empathize with them as a human being, because that's all we are. We are all just people trying to do the best with what we have. The things that we take for granted here, in terms of, it's really stripping things back to the most important things in life, and that is what we want universally. That's what I have seen with my own eyes, is people just want to be able to play with their children and not worry where the next meal is coming from. Kids want to be able to come home from school and play with their friends and not think that they may have to get married next month just to feed the family. They want to be able to dream of jobs that they could have in the future. They want to have hope and they want to have optimism. That said, people often say hopeless. In my experience, hope is always the last thing to go. People are always hopeful. So people to say people are hopeless, it's a real vestige of humanity that is one of the last things to go, that people are always hopeful for a change. But unfortunately, hunger is just the start of so many people's problems. We have a habit of thinking about hunger in a way that, well, they're hungry, they starve to death, they die. That's quite simply not the case. People will do unimaginable things in order to survive, in order to feed their children, in order to keep themselves alive. And that can be from young boys who drop out of school and disappear because they leave their family because they know if they go to the city, they have a better chance of getting a job doing manual labour. It is kids who drop out of school, who I've seen with my own eyes, kids chasing trucks through busy cities, stealing things off of the back of trucks just to try and feed themselves. It's girls who think about child marriage and prostitution not as a scary thing in the future, but as almost like a way of life. It is something that I may have to do if my family want to survive. I may have to marry this man who is so considerably older than me. Mothers have told me of, I worry that my children will have to go into prostitution. It's not a scary thing off in the distance. It's just a part of life which is wrong and is so avoidable. And it doesn't even take that much sacrifice from people across the world in order to be able to balance those scales. It really wouldn't take that much. But it does involve us putting ourselves mildly out of our comfort zone. And so the Hunger Project, we are a programme that, when we were founded in 1977, we were founded from almost an activist perspective. We were founded for full systematic change. We take that tone. I was recently speaking to an incredible artist, she's based out of Glasgow, Melini, and she said to me, hunger is a policy failure. And she's so right. It is a governmental policy failure. It is governments around the world who often don't have the global community at their heart. And we see that in the UK here, we see that through food bank use here, we see that through the amount of people who are starving in Britain, and we see that through the amount of people who are starving all around the world. We could do more, we just often choose not to.
Wow. So it's, as you said, it's such a big problem, but there can be things that we can do. Just so people can sort of understand a little bit more, talk to me about some of what you describe as success stories in terms of the sustainability, so people can really get that understand of actually this really can be done and it really does work in terms of just some of the countries that you've been involved with.
Yeah, so to give you an idea of recently was told a story about a girl in India. So in India, we work slightly differently. We don't have the sort of the centre model that we do in Africa because, as I said, because we're ground up, we fix the problems that the community bring to us. It would be strange for us to show up and go, but in Mexico, we work with indigenous populations. Let's do that for you. And they go, we don't need that.
Yeah.
So in India, we work with people in the Panchat system. So the Panchat system is like the sort of local community, sort of local councils. Now, it's law in India that a certain percentage of those community councils have to be women. But sometimes what we were encountering was there was women on those, but they weren't being given the floor. They weren't being given the voice. They were sometimes it was perhaps a bit tokenistic. They were there, they were part of it, their name was on a list, but thank you for your time.
Yeah.
You sit there and let the men make the decision. And coming from a man and two men, we obviously always make such fantastic decisions for the world. And so I when I first started on the project, I remember reading this story about a girl who she was 27 and she had got elected to be a member of the Panchat. And she had built 69 roads connecting up communities in her region. So getting between them all for market trading, for education, for medical help, for everything had been now impossible. And during this girl's term, she built all these roads and she joined all these communities and she beamed with joy of when she said, "This is my legacy. No matter what happens the rest of my life, I went from a position to think that I didn't have a voice and I wasn't able to do anything. And now people can get medical support, they can travel to markets, they can do these things because I was told that I had a voice and I was able to make those changes." And she built all those roads and connected communities. And it's things like that. It's things across Africa of simple things where you have mothers who are able to feed their whole families from their agricultural plots and then sell a little bit in market and are able to support their families. So it's no longer just their husbands that are going out to do sort of piecemeal labour, that they're able to provide this. We have girls who, there's a project in Uganda where we teach those who are teenage mothers we put them through a seamstress course. And so with that, so the program, say we have 10 girls on the program at a time. They will be given the startup materials they'll need. They'll be given seed money to start a business afterwards. They will be given opportunities to train for over a period of time. But in addition to that, the whole community will be involved. So we will do training opportunities and development opportunities with the whole community on a whole number of things. But one of the really important things that we do training on is on sexual and reproductive rights. And it is to combat child marriage, it's to combat rape, it's to combat gender-based violence, because it is educating a full community and bringing a group of people together. So these girls are maybe dropping out of school and their outlook is really poor because they are teenage mothers and they don't know what they're going to do. So they get a training course and then they get the opportunity to become seamstresses in their own communities and to start their businesses and to have that opportunity to make money and to have a bit of investment in themselves. But they also get to understand their rights and they get that element of education and the community gets that element of education, particularly around sexual education, because it is not prevalent across all of the countries we work in, that it's built into a standard way of life of discussing about sex education. There is often an instance of rape where women are raped, but they don't know enough about sex education because they're children a lot of the time. So they don't actually know what's happened to them. So they can't put the word rape to it. They also don't understand that if they are offered food for sex, that it's rape. And so we work with communities as part of that. So we'll provide that hands-on support for those girls, but also the whole community will get an education on those sort of aspects of things. So it is really that we start with the women and girls, but then it sort of moves out amongst the communities. And also things like, I told you the story of women 28 weeks pregnant that were having to walk a 6-kilometre round trip in order to get pre and postnatal care, malnutrition advice, support. If a mother is malnourished, her child will be born malnourished. And that is a really slippery slope to try and get yourself out of. Now, for many people that will be listening, they will know exactly what it's like to either have a partner who is 28 weeks pregnant or be that pregnant themselves, or at the very least, you can imagine what that's like. A 6-kilometre round trip for some of those women is now impossible. The idea of having to of your waters breaking at home and then having to get 3 kilometres to the government clinic before you can give birth on foot. That is exceptionally difficult, if you can imagine it. So there was a really high rate of women giving birth at home, which often led to the death of the mother, the death of the baby. So in that community, we worked with the community to build a health clinic and train up volunteers to do pre and postnatal checks, to do education. And we've seen a real staggering drop of children who are being born malnourished, children who are being born stunted. So they are already set up that their growth will not progress at the levels that it should do because of malnutrition. And it's working with local communities to provide a little bit of education as well, but actually in some ways we have a lot to hold accountable for that, because we have taught people globally in the West chemical fertilizers. It's a big thing that anybody who's ever had any encounter with anybody in agriculture, chemical fertilizers is pushed as the number one way to grow your crops. If you want to grow crops, chemical fertilizer to buy in some of the countries we work in is exceptionally expensive. And it's also damaging both to the environment and to the ground. But we have told people, the louder voices in the West and in the big companies that produce these fertilizers have told people this is the way, this is the best way. So sometimes it's working with communities to say, well, actually, it's not the only way. So in Zambia, we have a program that we provide communities with rabbits. Rabbits are great for a number of reasons. They don't need a lot of space. They breed like crazy. Their meat can be sold, or it can be eaten, and also their droppings can be used, can be put in a bath with water in a bag, and that water then can be used as fertilizer to grow crops. And it's all of those things that come from 2 rabbits. And the phrase breeding like rabbits is not is there for a reason, because they will breed, which then gives people an income. They can sell those rabbits, they can do, and it's all about that, and they don't need to buy the chemical fertilizers. Because interestingly, one of the big worries that I've encountered when I've spoke to people is there's a big worry about climate change and their responsibility for climate change in those countries. They worry about, oh, we don't cut down trees anymore, and we don't do this and we don't do that, and we'll use this and we'll use that because we're not going to pollute the planet anymore. When in reality, they are responsible for less than 10% of global carbon emissions come from the countries that we work in. They have not caused the climate disasters. They have not caused the climate chaos. They are the people who are being impacted right now. They are the people who are seeing the reality that people all across the world will see in 15, 20, 30, 40 years' time, unless we get a hold of this, unless the polluters that, I mean, you only have to spend a short period of time online to understand that 90% of our carbon emissions comes from a very small group of companies and organizations globally. It is not people in Zambia trying to grow food to feed their family, cutting down a tree for firewood, but they are going out of their way to develop new models and new ways of doing things to eliminate their carbon footprint. And the amount, I don't think I can express the hard work and dedication that these communities have to improve things for themselves, for their children, for generations. That working in these epicenters, working in their community groups, working to be a voice within the political panchet system, working to be there, they are changing the lives of whole generations. They are allowing kids to leave school and dream of being doctors and nurses, not just think that they'll have to get married off or starve. And it's through their hard work and their dedication to it. The days of us saying, oh, if you give me £10, you can save a child in Africa, that's gone. That's gone. I want you to give me £10 because it's the right thing to do, because it is helping another member of humanity who wants the same things that you and I want for happy children, for happy communities, for people to be healthy and to live and to be able to play a part in the global community, because that's what they want. They want to be active members in the global community. They want to share their skills. They want to share their knowledge. They want to move out in the world, and they want to be educated. They want to be doctors because they want to help people. They want to be nurses because they want to help people. And yeah, it's a great thing to be part of. It's an incredible thing to see the impact of that sort of work, and just to hear people talk about the amazing accomplishment that people have went through, the amazing changes that they've went through.
Yeah, and I think that's, for me, that's it. I could sit and listen to you all day, because actually it's something that I can tell the passion that you have. And again, not just this, but obviously you've been involved in these sort of projects before, and you've been involved before you were with the Hunger Project. In terms of the organisation at the moment, what are you sort of, if you said, right, then over the next 2-3 years, this is what we're looking at doing, where
Yeah.
would you be at the moment in terms of that? What's your sort of the plans for the next couple of years for the organisation?
Yeah, so we had the very ambitious goal, which was set a number of years ago in our previous strategy, to eradicate world hunger by 2030. Now, a lot of things have happened in that period of time of that strategy that has delayed that. And also a lot of the recognizing that goal requires a lot of governmental support from all governments. That is not always the most forthcoming in terms of policy changes, particularly, I'll talk from a UK perspective, because we do work with government agencies. We do get support in terms of financial support from some of the government, from the overseas aids, USA aid in particular. They support the US arm of it. So they are there. But in order to really eradicate global hunger, you need a full overhaul of the systems that keep people down. You mentioned I've been involved. Not only have I been involved in international development for a few years, I've also worked with, as part of, I've been on the chair board of a food bank that feeds 10,000 people a year for the past 10 years. And when I joined that food bank board, I thought I would be on it for a couple of months, maybe, because it was back when food banks were a shocking term. Food banks in my community. And now we're feeding 10,000 people a year, men, women, and children. And we've become part of the background across this country. There are so many food banks, food pantries, and charities that are now fulfilling a gap as almost a statutory service, not as a charitable organisation. So hunger is not an international, local issue or an international issue. It is a global issue. It's all of our problem. It's just the varying degrees that we have and the actions that we need to take. We're very lucky in the UK and in other countries that there are lots of safety nets in place to catch people. You can fall, but there is a lot of the UK alone, on average, 166,000 charities, give or take, as some fold, new year started. It's been a relatively static number for years now, but there is a lot to catch people. There is a lot to try and stop people. It doesn't catch everybody. It's not an impervious safety net, but there is at least some things there that you can rely on. In a lot of the countries we're working in, those simply do not exist. If you fall, you are falling hard and you're falling all the way to the bottom and you're taking your whole family with you. So when you're addressing the root causes and the problems of hunger, you have to start with the people who are most likely to be affected by it the harshest, the first. Because we don't want, because as I said, we don't want to eradicate hunger in Africa and India and Mexico and Peru and Bangladesh. We want to eradicate chronic hunger. We don't want anybody globally waking up in the morning unable to feed themselves or their children. So in the UK in particular, over the next couple of years, one of the big things we want to do is we want to do things like this, Tom. We want to talk to people. We want to tell them about the impact that the Hunger Project is already having. We don't ask people to become donors to the Hunger Project. We ask people to become investors, because we ask people to invest in a future without hunger, to invest in people across the world and what they're doing, and to invest in themselves, to make a commitment that they will play whatever action that they can in order to come through the other side. Now, it's a big problem. It's a massive problem. But fundamentally, not one person has to solve all that problem. Everyone has to take responsibility for just their little segment. And it's more than just feeding people. If all that you can do to support global communities is to hit share on something on Facebook and to put it out to a wider audience, then that's all you can do. If you're in a position to volunteer your time to support the Hunger Project or support other charities tackling poverty, then that's great. Do that. If you are in the position that when you're walking down the street, you're able to share a smile and a friendly hello with somebody, do that. Because if every person does their tiny little bit to improve the lives of the communities and the people around them, then the problem will solve itself. What we need is everyone to take responsibility for the part that they are in control of. I don't expect the people listening to this podcast or the people of Britain to be able to imagine what 12 million people that we are working with currently look like. I certainly don't imagine that they can think, oh, 1 billion people, I'll get onto that tomorrow and I'll solve that problem. We just need people to understand that it is solvable and that it's solvable with chipping away in little bits. So that could be signing up to our newsletter to learn a wee bit more, educating a wee bit more. As I said, sharing what you're passionate about on social media. That is hugely important. Telling people, do you know what, this is actually a fixable solution. The World Food Programme, the World Health Organization publish figures every year that tells you about different areas that will tell you how much money it would cost to stop people dying in that 12-month period and eradicate this problem. We have countries around the world who the word famine is thrown around a lot, but famine is a technical term. It is the UN has to declare a famine. It is when you get to a certain stage. If you get to famine, you have gone too far. You are talking hundreds of thousands of people dying. We have countries in the world right now that are sitting in the pre-famine stage, where action has to be taken, and now in order to stop millions of people dying. And so it's that understanding of what we need to do. It's also an understanding of the global situation and the impact that things have on other countries. The war in Ukraine has been it has been so destructive for the people of Ukraine and the surrounding countries, but also in terms of access to food and grain and things like that came out of Ukraine to go to countries that we work in. And sadly, that's where you see the real power balance of the world at play, because we will talk a lot about the cost of living crisis, the food prices going up here and the cost of things going up here. But that is because we hold the cards that allow us to get access to that food in the first place. I often talk to people and use the sort of metaphor of you walking into a coffee shop. You walk into a coffee shop, go around to one of the major chains, walk in today, and you will probably have the choice of 3, maybe 4 different muffins. A seasonal muffin, a muffin of the week. You don't have to have access to 4 muffins, but they have to provide you with 4 muffins. There must be 4 muffins on display for you to choose from, because that is the expectation that we have. And in order for us to have a choice of 4 muffins, whether they all go in the bit, maybe you go in that day and you don't feel like a muffin, you want a bit of carrot cake. So all those muffins go to waste, or for some of the really good organisations out there, they maybe donate them and feed other people, which is amazing. But there are a lot of places where that's just not a possibility, particular small organisations, small one-man bands. They can't spend every evening looking at all their food and go, right, okay, I'll take this down here now.
Yeah.
But we have the choice of muffins. Now, we could walk into the same coffee shop, the big international chain, next week, and they go, today's muffin is blueberry. And we go, okay, today's muffin is blueberry. Don't want a blueberry. I'll have that bit of carrot cake. Thanks very much. And as a result of us having that choice of 1 muffin, maybe 2, there is more food there to go to someone else who that grain and the cost of producing that food and the time cost of producing that food can be invested in making sure that someone else has food. And so it's that thing. So I think I said to you maybe before the call of fixing global hunger is, the frustrating thing about it is it's doable. It doesn't even require that much sacrifice. It doesn't even require that much for us to lose. It's little decisions in everybody's life and every single day that says if you're building a massive building and you're putting 50 spotlights in to make a hotel lobby look beautiful, great. But actually, would you be able to accomplish the same with 40? And then is there 10 that could say? It's all of these little decisions that people can make in their day-to-day life that means that you can put some money in to buy an extra can of beans to give it to the food bank. You can invest in the Hunger Project to provide people with that sustainable solution. And I'm not asking you to pay for someone in Burkina Faso. I'm not asking you to give me £10 a month to pay for that person to live for the rest of their life. I'm asking you to give me some money. We will work with them. They will create a long-term sustainable solution. And then your money will help someone else and someone else, because they have now put themselves in a position where they no longer need that support. So that to me, and on a bigger global thing, and for all charities, it is that idea of just cover the segment that is in front of you to improve the world. Whatever your cause is that you support, whatever you have at your fingertips that you can, every one of us can make a difference. Everyone can. We just have to choose to. And I suppose that would be a message from me, because I'm sure that the future Prime Minister will be listening to this, whoever they are. We just have to choose to make a difference. There is always the conversations that we have about international aid budgets and sending money overseas and immigration and letting refugees in and all these type of things. And sending money overseas. You have to ask the question when you are talking about slashing international development budgets and slashing international aid budgets. We could help people, we could help other people as well, but the government would have to choose to help people. We would have to choose as a country to help people. We would have to make that decision. And slashing an international aid budget or a development budget does not necessarily mean that money will be, that someone will make the decision to put that money into the NHS or put the money where it's needed or do this, that, the next thing. It is a choice. Now, we hope that whatever governments are in charge, they will make the right choices to help the most amount of people, both here in the UK and globally. It's still a choice that people have to make. And so some people's choice is to say hello to someone at a bus stop who looks like they're having a bad day, or just smile or a wave or a can of beans in the food bag. And other people have much bigger choices to make of where do we put this £100 billion? How do we help this? How many refugees do we let in? How many immigrants do we let in? How do we support people to get the most out of life that they possibly can? It's all just choices. And so that would be the big thing for me, and the big thing I think for the Hunger Project is we want to let as many people know about our work as possible so that they can make educated choices on how they can invest in a world without hunger, without inequality, where everybody has a fair chance.
This has been an incredible podcast, because actually the great thing about launching this is the fact I can actually get some amazing people on, some amazing organizations, and just learn as well. And just, I love being able to sit back and just listen and just learn what's going on. If someone was listening to this right now, and we've sort of touched on it a little bit there, what's the one thing you'd want them to do?
Right now in the UK, or in fact in any place around the world, if you're listening to this and you want to support the Hunger Project, what I want you to do is I want you to go and visit a Hunger Project website. I want you to go onto social media. I want you to look at what we do. I want you to go into YouTube, and I want you to go and watch some of the films that we have of the people that we work with. And you'll note I haven't said the people we help, the people that we give the people we work with, those incredible people on the ground that are doing all the hard work. I want you to look at them. I want you to watch videos about that we have of these two incredible women in India who are facilitators, who travel from community to community, badgering local women to say, you need to get involved in the local politics, you need to change things. I want you to look at a woman called Fatty in Burkina Faso, who is working so hard to farm and to create a situation where her children, and she has, where all of her kids go to school, and how proud she is of that. I want you to look at that. I'm a big fan of the idea of, and in fact, the well-respected, incredible fundraiser Alan Clayton. It's one of his phrases, so I can't steal it without name checking him. But it's a good story, authentically told. Fundraisers and people working in the charity sector, regardless of where you are, whether or not you work in finance, you work in legal, you work in HR, whatever you do, fundamentally your job working within the charity sector, you are a storyteller. Everyone within a charity must be equipped to tell a story. It is not a technical discipline. There are many technical disciplines that go into working for charities. There is many technical disciplines that go to writing big applications and all these type of things. First and foremost, if what you're doing is good enough, then people should want to support it. And what we are doing is good enough. And so that's what I would like the listeners to do, is engage with the Hunger Project in some ways. See how the impact that we can have. Look at the impact stacks that we have, because we are very proud of being able to evidence the difference we can make. That question of, does any of the money ever get there? Yeah, it does. And we can show you how it gets there. We can show you the staff on the ground that work there. We can show you the impact it's made. We can show you the generational impact, which going from 1977 is something that we're proud of, because we can show long-term impact. And then if you choose to, make a donation, sign up to a direct debit, give us £2 a month, £4 a month, give us £1. Make that little, as I said, whatever little part you can do is great. If you can't afford to donate anything, share our posts, tell your friends and family about it. most importantly, talk about the people in the stories and the people in the videos. Talk about them. Talk about them and use their names. Talk about them and describe their pictures. Tell people about the beautiful pictures you saw of women in Burkina Faso and their kids. We've got some incredible photographs on our website of women who are working in our programs with their children, just smiling from ear to ear because they have done it. They have made a change happen that they didn't think was going to be possible. And talk about them as human beings. They're not others. They're not people far away in a country that don't matter. They are people just like you and I. They are people who care about each other. They are people who talk on podcasts. They are people who get interviewed by the local paper because they've done so well. They are human beings. And the biggest thing that any listener to this can do is start chipping away at that idea that people far away, living in countries, whether they're impacted by war or whether it's famines or droughts or anything, that they are others, that they are different to us. And imagine what you would do if a woman and her child walked up to you on the street tomorrow and said, I am starving, please help me, and you knew it was true. What would you do for them? And then make that decision on a global point. Make that decision for everyone and do what you can to help.
Amazing. Steve, this has been a brilliant conversation. For people who now want to go and check out, where can they find the Hunger Project online and around?
Yep, so we're on all social media channels. You just look for the Hunger Project UK. You'll get the UK specific Hunger Project. If you look for the Hunger Project, we have it comes into our US team, but we also have Hunger Projects in, as I said, 25 countries. They also all have their own social media, so have a look on them. And if you're in Australia, if you're in New Zealand, if you're look at that. There's ways you can get involved in your own country by being a voice for us. But yeah, go to thehungerproject.org.uk. Take a look at what we're doing. We've just had World Hunger Day, which was yesterday, which is a global movement that was founded by the Hunger Project to highlight the impact of hunger right now. And there's so many things that you can get involved with. There's so many things you can learn. And even if it's just going onto social media, click and follow, and taking 5 minutes to learn about the people that we work with. See, at the very least, if that's something you do while you're having a coffee, it'll bring a smile to your face. Like we are not in the business of telling you sad stories because we're not going to tell you sad stories. We're going to show you the impact that your money can make. We're going to show you the change that can be. If you invest in people who do incredible things. So I think that's what I'd like people to do is go to the website, learn about us. And so once you've learned about us, scream from the rooftops, tell people about the difference we're making. There's not many organisations out there that can say, yeah, we help 12 million people a year, and you've probably never heard of us.
Incredible. Yeah, and I completely go for that. Completely. So, Steve, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And if you're on YouTube or if you're listening as a podcast, this has been the Charity Connector. I'm your host, Don Fenton, and I'll see you again soon. Take care now.